Hey, this video will outline some details of Muhammad's life. We know that after he became a prophet, received these messages from Allah, the Meccans didn't immediately accept him, and he was ran out of town. He immigrated to Yathrib, soon to be known as Medina. Medina means city of the prophet, and until he was recognized as being the prophet, Medina was not the city of the prophet, it was Yathrib. 624, we see the start of three major battles with the Meccans. The Battle of Badr, which was a victory for the Muslims. 625, the Battle of Uhud, which was a defeat for the Muslims. And 627, the Battle of the Trench, which was a victory for the Muslims. In 628, the two sides signed a treaty recognizing the Muslims as a new force in Arabia. Meccan allies breached the treaty a year later. 629, Muhammad orders first raid into Christian lands at Mu'tah, defeated. 630, he conquers Mecca along with other tribes. 631, consolidated most of the Arabian Peninsula under Islam. 632, returned to Mecca to perform a pilgrimage. And 632, dies in Medina after a brief illness. He's buried in the Mosque of Medina. Alright, so what I wanted to do was share a little details on some of these battles, because they definitely are mentioned, but not as much detail in most outlines that you'll find online, most timelines like this one. So the Battle of Badr. Muslims planned to raid a very wealthy Meccan caravan. This is what Muhammad did to get wealth and money and following while in Medina. He raided caravans from the Meccans, and this obviously would upset the Meccans, who did reject him as a prophet. So the Meccans decided to protect this one wealthy caravan, and what Muhammad did was he filled the water wells with sand along their path, forcing them to go to Badr for water. So all the wells that they needed to get to, filled with sand each time, eventually led to Badr, where the Muslims waited for battle to besiege them. The Muslims were outnumbered, 300 in number for the Muslims, and the Meccans about 1,000. But the Muslims, they had slightly upper hand because they guided them to where they wanted to besiege them, so they had a better land positioning. 70 Meccans died and 70 were captured. Only 14 Muslims died. This was a huge victory for Islam, and they received a lot of rich spoils of war, plus many key leaders of the Meccan community were killed. Surah 8, Surah's chapter for the Quran, is named the Spoils of War. It references the Battle of Badr. This would be verses 12 to 17. The Quran doesn't have much historical particularity, not many specific details in it historically, so you have to go outside of the Quran to the Hadiths and other sources to discover what these verses are actually referencing in history. So verse 12, remember when your Lord inspired the angels, verily I am with you, so keep firm those who have believed. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who have disbelieved, so strike them over the necks and smite over all their fingers and toes. This is because they defied and disobeyed Allah and his messenger, and whoever defies and disobeys Allah and his messenger, then verily Allah is severe in punishment. This is the torment, so taste it, and surely for the disbelievers is the torment of the fire. O you who believe, when you meet those who disbelieve in a battlefield, never turn your backs to them. And whoever turns his back to them on such a day, unless it be a stratagem of war, or to retreat to a troop of his own, he indeed has drawn upon himself wrath from Allah, and his abode is hell, and worse indeed is that destination. You killed them not, but Allah killed them, and you, Muhammad, threw not when you did throw, but Allah threw, that he might test the believers by a fair trial from him. Verily Allah is all hearer, all knower. Alright, so if you just take verse 12 out of context, if you just take verse 12 not knowing it's referencing this battle, you can easily see people going, oh, just strike terror in the hearts of those who have disbelieved. Strike them over the necks, smite over all their fingers and toes. That could just be taken as do whenever you want, however you want, to any disbeliever. It's not exactly the case. Historical context, you can see this is referring to the Meccans that rejected him as a prophet of Allah because they defied and disobeyed him and didn't accept Muhammad as the messenger of God. And then, of course, you find this when they meet on the battlefield, not to turn away and stuff. So this was a battle, essentially, because the Meccans were just trying to protect their caravan. Outside of the Quran in the Hadiths, you do find this narrated by Abu Talha. On the day of Badr, the Prophet ordered that the corpses of 24 leaders of Quraysh should be thrown into one of the dirty, dry wells of Badr's. And then when he's leaving the battlefield after 3 days, it says, when he halted at the edge of the well, he addressed the corpses of the Quraysh infidels by their names and their fathers' names. O so-and-so, son of so-and-so, and O so-and-so, son of so-and-so. Would it have pleased you if you had obeyed Allah and His Apostle? We have found true what our Lord promised us. Have you too found true what your Lord promised you? Umar said, O Allah's Apostle, you are speaking to bodies that have no souls. Allah's Apostle said, by Him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, you do not hear what I say better than they do. So, essentially, you see here, Allah, or Muhammad is saying that these people can hear him even though they're in hell. The Battle of Uhud is next. The Meccans came for revenge, so certainly this was them coming out to battle. The Muslims were outnumbered 3-1, outnumbered by cavalry 50-1. But, you know, Muhammad has some pretty good strategies. He has archers up on the hills to protect. And the only problem was the archers got a little greedy. The archers saw that they were winning. All right, so the Muslims end up seeing, the archers on the hills end up seeing that the Meccans were fleeing. They did not want to lose out in getting some of the spoils of the conquest. So they left early to make sure they could get down there to get what was theirs, or what they thought should be theirs as well. And because they left their post, this is why the Muslims lost. And all this is recorded in the Hadiths, Bukhari, Book 4, Chapter 52, verse 276. All right, next big battle is the Battle of the Trench. Battle of the Trench, 627 A.D. The Meccans again come out against Muhammad. And all this started because he's raiding all their caravans and taking their stuff. Medina is actually pretty well protected on all sides except this one. So Muhammad and his men end up building a trench, and with this trench, it helps slow the cavalry of the Meccans and helps, in a way, keep them safe. But the Meccans, you know, they eventually get through the trenches and things, and battles happen, and they end up losing. During this process, you can see this Banu Qurayza on the offside here, on the bottom right. It's a Jewish tribe that made an allegiance with Muhammad. During the battling, they seem to, Muhammad is afraid that the Qurayza ended up trading sides and siding with the Meccans. And because of this, I mean, they never came out to fight or anything like that, but I mean, I guess the idea is that they did betray him and side with the Meccans to say, if you come through here, we're not going to try to stop you. So because of this betrayal, Muhammad ends up killing all the men of this tribe. This is found in Surah chapter 33, verse 26, and those are the people of the books. People of the book would be Jews, Christians, because Jews and Christians at least recognize the prophets that are sent by God, which would be all the prophets in the Bible. And those are the people of the book who aided them. Allah did take them down from their strongholds and cast terror into their hearts, so that some ye slew and some ye made prisoners. So not much detail is given there, but what we find from the Hadiths, which you see I got quoted there, when Allah's apostle returned on the day of the battle, he put down his arms and took a bath, and Gabriel, whose head was covered with dust, came to him, saying, you have put down your arms. By Allah, I have not put down my arms yet. Allah's apostle said, where to go now? Gabriel said, this way, pointing towards the tribes of Bani Qurayza. So Allah's apostle went out towards them. When he gets there, the messenger of Allah commanded that ditches should be dug, so that they were dug in the earth, and they were brought tied by their shoulders and were beheaded. There were between 700 and 800 of them. The children who had not yet reached adolescence and the women were taken prisoner, and their wealth was seized. And what we can find from history here is that they actually checked who had reached adolescence by checking to see if they had grown pubes yet or not. So this is a great example. This is the sort of thing you see ISIS doing when they take over a city. They kill all the men, behead them, and take the women as sex slaves, and kill all the kids, and the people under adolescence, you know, are just taken as slaves. So they're really just following in the path of Muhammad and the things that he said and did. They did surrender to Muhammad. They wanted to surrender. He wouldn't let them surrender. This is ended up what happened. So, yeah, they didn't fight back when he came to them. So the decision to kill all the Jewish men comes from the Torah. This is what's cited for why Muhammad did this. Deuteronomy 20:12-14. But if the city makes no peace with you, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it, and when the Lord your God gives it into your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword. But the women and the little ones, the cattle, and everything else in the city, all its spoils you shall take as booty for yourselves, and you shall enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. So I think this is slightly different from what happened here, because the Qurayza tribe did surrender. They did try to have peace. They didn't go out to fight against Muhammad. Even during the Battle of the Trench, no one from this tribe went out to fight against Muhammad. They just kind of gave in and said, yeah, we're not going to fight you Meccans if you try to come in through the southern entrance by our town. Concerning his wives, some lists will mention having multiple wives. He did have 12 wives. This one Islamic website you see cited here lists the 12. It cites his youngest wife as Aisha, but it doesn't say how old she was. When you go outside of the Quran to the Sahih Muslim 83310, it's Aisha talking here. Aisha, Allah be pleased with her, reported, Allah's apostle, may peace be upon him, married me when I was 6 years old, and I was admitted to his house when I was 9 years old. So youngest wife was 6 years old. His seventh wife was actually his daughter-in-law. Muhammad lusted after his daughter-in-law, Zainab, which obviously caused some problems with the locals. But Surah 33:37 commands Muhammad to marry the woman following her husband's gracious divorce after he accomplished his want of her. So his son then is told to just divorce his wife and give her to Muhammad. And, he should do that because, well, he's the prophet. It's kind of prophet perks, benefits of being a prophet. Some of these benefits of being a prophet actually recorded in the Quran. Muhammad had so many wives because God made it lawful for him. All other Muslims could only have 4, but Surah 33:50 says that Muhammad can have as many wives as is allowed because Allah has ordained it for him. Every other man can only have 4 wives. And you see mentioned through the Quran a lot about Muhammad having those who his right hand possesses. The right hand possesses would be those women who were taken in war. And so an interesting thing here, Surah 4:24, and all married women are forbidden unto you, save those captives whom your right hand possesses. So if you have a married woman from war that you take, even though she's married, you can then still have sex with her, or I guess you could marry her or something along those lines. So really great stuff here. Those who did speak against the Prophet Muhammad, even in satirical poetry, were put to death. So I got a list there of where you can see the people which were put to death by Muhammad for speaking against him. These are just some of the events in Muhammad's life, and the following is what the Quran teaches concerning the life of Muhammad. He demonstrated good examples in all aspects of life. Allah says, you have indeed in the apostle of Allah a beautiful pattern of conduct for anyone whose hope is in Allah in the final day and who engages much in the praise of Allah. So if you want to ensure that you're going to be judged well by Allah at the final day of judgment, to the Muslim, that would mean you would want to follow in the example of Muhammad, which is why I think you see a lot of the stuff you're seeing now with ISIS. They're just following the examples of Muhammad.